Hello everyone, welcome to Whispering Dark Tales, where the scariest and most mysterious ghost stories are told. Chapter 1. The First Bell. The old clock on the wall struck 12. Kang, kang, each chime echoed throughout the small, dark, suffocating room. The sound was strangely heavy, as if it were not just the tolling of a clock, but something from the abyss calling. Hoy sat alone in his rented room, his eyes fixed on the antique clock he had bought just a few days ago at the town's flea market. The seller had smiled mysteriously and said, "This clock only rings at midnight. Whoever hears its bell will know their true destiny." At first, Hoy thought it was just a way to intrigue buyers. But from the very first night, when the hands pointed to 12 and the bell rang, he began to feel a suffocating chill. Every time the bell sounded, the entire space around him seemed to tremble. The shadows in the corners stretched and swayed like they were alive. Tonight, when the bell rang, the door of the room suddenly creaked open even though he clearly remembered locking it. A gust of icy wind blew in, carrying with it a faint scent of burning incense. Hoy's body stiffened, his throat constricted. From the darkness outside the door came a dragging sound, like the footsteps of someone carrying heavy chains, slowly drawing closer. And in the silence between the chimes of the clock, a faint voice whispered, "You have heard the bell, now you belong to us." Chapter 2. The Shadow by the Window. Hoy slammed the door shut, his hands trembling and his forehead soaked with cold sweat. He tried to convince himself it was just his imagination, a hallucination brought on by fear. But when the bell struck again, kang, kang, the light bulb in the room flickered violently, then went out, plunging everything into pitch-black darkness. From the window, pale moonlight seeped in, illuminating a figure standing outside. It was a shadow, tall, thin, its body completely dark, yet its eyes glowed white, fixed directly on Hoy. His heart stopped. He tried not to breathe, not to make a sound, but the shadow slowly raised its hand and tapped on the window pane. Cock, cock, cock. Each knock echoed in the silence of midnight, blending with the clock's bell tolls. Hoy screamed, rushing to turn on the light. But when the bulb lit up, the shadow vanished. Only the window remained tightly shut, with faint scratch marks as if sharp nails had scraped across the glass. On the wall opposite, a dark stain appeared, slowly spreading, forming into letters that read, 12 o'clock, the cursed hour. Hoy collapsed onto the floor, terrified. The old clock's bell rang one last time, echoing in his ears, as if mocking. Kang, kang. From that moment on, he knew this clock was not an ordinary object. Chapter 3. The Old Diary. The following day, Hoy tried to throw the antique clock away, but no matter how far he tossed it, when he returned to his room, it was still hanging on the wall as if it had never moved. Fear gnawed at him. That night, when the hands pointed to 12, he braced himself. Kang, kang, the bell rang again. This time, the desk drawer slowly creaked open on its own. Inside was an old, tattered notebook that Hoy swore had never been there before. Its cover was stained, and the pages inside were filled with smudged red letters, as though written in blood. On the first page, a line stood out clearly. "Whoever hears the bell will see death." Hoy's hands trembled as he flipped through. Each page recorded the death of a different person, a drowned man, a burned woman, a missing child, all with dates and times. Strangely, every death occurred exactly at midnight. On the last page, a new line of writing slowly appeared, as though an invisible hand was scribbling. The next one, Nguyen Minh Hoy. Hoy's blood froze. That was his name. Just then, the light bulb shattered. From behind him came the sound of chains dragging, along with a voice whispering faintly, "It's your turn." Chapter 4. The Knock at the Door. The sound of dragging chains grew closer and closer. Hoy's entire body stiffened, his breath caught in his throat. Suddenly, cock, cock, cock. Someone knocked on the door. Each knock was slow, heavy, echoing unnaturally in the silence of midnight. Hoy held his breath, not daring to move. His eyes were fixed on the door, which trembled slightly with every knock. Who's there?" he stammered, his voice shaking. No answer, only the knock repeated. Cock, cock, cock. Summoning all his courage, Hoy grabbed a chair and hurled it at the door. The knock stopped. Silence returned, but just as he thought it was over, a low, chilling whisper came from right outside the door. "You've heard the bell? Open the door?" Hoy screamed and stumbled back toward the corner. The old clock struck again, the sound echoing through the room. Kang, kang. The door slowly creaked open by itself. No one was there, only a long trail of wet footprints, leading from the doorway straight into Hui's room. Chapter 5. The Trail of Footprints. The trail of wet footprints led straight across the floor, circling Hui's bed. His entire body trembled. He pressed himself against the wall, his eyes wide with horror. Each footprint was fresh, water still dripping, yet there was no one visible in the room. Hoy held his breath, but then, latch cash, latch cash. The sound of chains dragging echoed again, this time inside the room. The footprints circled the bed once more before suddenly stopping at the desk. The old diary lay there, wide open. On its newest page, words began to appear one by one, written in blood. "He is watching you sleep." Hoy screamed, bolting toward the door, but when he turned the knob, it wouldn't budge. The door was locked tight, as though sealed from the outside. Behind him, the sound of breathing grew louder, harsh and ragged. Turning slowly, Hoy saw, in the mirror hanging on the wall, a figure standing right beside him. It was tall, burned black, eyes glowing white. Its face leaned closer, whispering, "It's midnight, forever midnight." Chapter 6. The Mirror. The figure in the mirror stood right beside Hoy, though when he looked to his side, there was no one there. Only in the reflection did it exist. Tall and burned black, with hollow white eyes staring straight at him. Hoy froze, unable to move. Cold sweat drenched his back. The figure in the mirror slowly raised its hand and pressed it against the glass. "Cash, cash?" The mirror cracked where the hand touched, spreading like a spider's web. From the crack seeped thick black liquid, oozing down the surface like blood turned to tar. On the glass, words began to take shape, formed out of the dripping darkness. "You cannot escape the bell." Hoy stumbled backward, his breath ragged. Suddenly, the mirror shattered with a deafening crash. Shards scattered across the floor. But instead of simply breaking, the reflection did not disappear. The burned black figure stepped out from the broken mirror, its chains dragging across the floor. It raised its head slowly, and in a voice like wind howling through a graveyard, it whispered, "Your name is next." Chapter 7. The Whispering Chains. The figure dragged its chains across the floor, each link clattering like bones striking against stone. Hoy collapsed to the ground, crawling backward until his back hit the wall. His throat was dry, his voice hoarse. Go away from me." The figure stopped in front of him. Slowly, it lowered its burned, skeletal hand, placing the icy cold chain around Hui's neck. Immediately, his body froze. He felt as though his breath was being stolen away. From deep within the darkness, countless whispers echoed, voices overlapping, distorted, repeating the same words over and over. "You've heard the bell, you cannot run, you cannot run." The old diary on the desk flipped open violently. The pages turned by themselves, stopping at a blank sheet. Red letters appeared, written as if by an unseen hand. "The chain has been placed. The curse has begun." Hoy clutched at the chain around his neck, struggling desperately. His fingers turned numb with cold. Then, the antique clock on the wall chimed again. Kang, kang. At the sound, the figure slowly released its grip, chains rattling. It leaned close to Hui's ear and whispered, "Tomorrow, at midnight, I'll come back for you." And with that, it vanished into the shadows, leaving only the echo of its chains rattling in the dark. Chapter 8. The Cursed Hour. That entire night, Hoy could not sleep. The chain's cold still lingered on his neck, even though it was no longer there. At dawn, he rushed to return the clock to the flea market. But when he arrived, the stall where he had bought it was gone, as if it had never existed. He asked around, but no one knew of such a seller. Some even told him, "This market hasn't had a clock seller for decades." Hui's face turned pale. He carried the clock back with him, unable to rid himself of it. That night, he decided to stay awake, determined to smash it when midnight came. The hands ticked closer to 12. 11:59. Hoy raised the hammer in his trembling hand. 12 o'clock. The bell rang. Kang, kang. At that very moment, the hammer flew out of his hand as if ripped away. The clock's glass face cracked. Yet the bell continued to toll, louder and heavier than before. All the shadows in the room began to stretch, twisting into distorted shapes that crawled along the walls. From the darkness, the whispering voices returned, overlapping one another. "It's the cursed hour, the cursed hour," Hoy screamed, pressing his hands to his ears. But the voices only grew louder, echoing inside his skull. On the wall, blood seeped through the cracks, forming into words. "One cannot fight the bell." Chapter 9. The Face in the Darkness. That night, the cursed bell continued to toll. Hoy sat in the corner of the room, hugging himself, trying to keep from breaking down. The shadows that writhed on the walls slowly merged together into a dark mass. From that mass emerged a face, burned black, twisted, yet with eyes glowing a ghostly white. The face pressed against the wall, its mouth stretching unnaturally wide. "Hoy," it called, dragging his name in a chilling voice. He froze, blood draining from his face. The face on the wall grinned wider. Its mouth opened, and from it crawled out dozens of skeletal hands, dragging across the floor, reaching toward him. Hoy screamed, grabbing the broken chair leg to fend them off. But no matter how hard he swung, his blows passed straight through, as though the hands were made of smoke. One of them gripped his ankle. Ice spread through his body. The old diary on the desk flipped open violently once again. On its fresh page appeared blood-red words. "The bell has called his name." The face on the wall leaned forward, whispering through the darkness, "You cannot run from midnight." At that moment, the clock chimed once more. Kang, kang. The hands instantly vanished, leaving only deep claw marks burned into Hui's skin. Chapter 10. The Graveyard. That night, after the cursed bell tolled, Hoy found himself unable to stay in the room any longer. At midnight, just as the bell rang, his surroundings suddenly changed. Kang, kang. In the blink of an eye, he was no longer in his room, but standing in the middle of a graveyard. The grave stretched endlessly under the pale moonlight. The cold wind blew, carrying with it the faint smell of rotting earth. At the far end of the cemetery stood a coffin. Its lid slowly creaked open. From inside, a burned black corpse sat up, chains wrapped around its body, its empty white eyes fixed on Hoy. The diary in his hand flipped open on its own. On the fresh page appeared the words, "The cursed bell calls from the grave." Hoy stumbled backward, his breathing ragged. The corpse climbed out of the coffin, dragging its chains, moving step by step toward him. From the surrounding graves, countless skeletal hands burst out of the soil, clawing, as though trying to drag him down. The clock's bell tolled again. Kang, kang. The entire graveyard seemed to shake. The coffin lid slammed shut, the corpse vanishing inside. When the chime faded, Hoy suddenly found himself back in his room. But the stench of soil and decay still lingered. On the wall, smeared in blood, were the words, "The grave has heard the bell." Chapter 11. The Child's Laughter. That night, Hoy forced himself to stay awake. Every time he closed his eyes, he felt as though something would drag him into eternal darkness. At 12 o'clock, the bell tolled again. Kang, kang. This time, instead of chains or whispers, a sound drifted through the room, the clear laughter of a child. Hi hi, hi hi. Hoy froze. His blood ran cold. From under the bed, a small hand reached out, pale and thin, its nails long and black. It scratched along the wooden floorboards, making a sharp screeching sound. The diary flipped open on the desk. Red letters slowly formed. "The child has awakened at the bell." The laughter grew louder. Hui's body stiffened as he watched a small figure crawl out from under the bed. It was a child, but its face was burned black, its eyes blank white, and its mouth split unnaturally wide in a grotesque smile. The child tilted its head and whispered, its voice overlapping with the chime of the clock. "Play with me, forever?" Hoy screamed, scrambling to the door, but the child moved in an instant, blocking his way, its laughter echoing unnaturally. The clock chimed again. Kang, kang. At that sound, the child vanished, leaving behind only muddy footprints and the faint echo of laughter, lingering in the silence. Chapter 12. The Room Number 7. The next night, when the cursed bell struck 12, Hoy suddenly found himself no longer in his rented room. Kang, kang. In the blink of an eye, he was standing in the corridor of an old, abandoned dormitory. The walls were damp, paint peeling, the air heavy with mold. At the end of the hallway was a door, On it was written a single number, smeared in black. 7. The diary in Hui's hand flipped open. Red words appeared. Those who enter room 7 will never return. The door creaked open by itself. Inside, the room was dark, with a single bed pushed up against the wall. On the bed sat a shadowy figure. Its back turned. It was humming a lullaby in a distorted, broken voice. Hui's heart pounded. He slowly stepped inside. The shadow on the bed stopped singing. Slowly, it turned around. Its face was nothing but a hollow void, burned black, with two glowing white eyes staring directly at him. The door slammed shut behind Hui. The clock's bell tolled again, echoing through the room. Kang, Kang? The figure leaned closer, whispering, "You shouldn't have come in." Chapter 13. The Eyes in the Dark. The moment the door to room 7 slammed shut, darkness engulfed everything. Hui pressed his back against the wall, his breath shallow. From all corners of the room came the sound of breathing, ragged, heavy, overlapping, as if dozens of people were inhaling and exhaling at once. Then, pairs of white eyes slowly opened in the darkness, one after another. They glowed faintly, staring straight at him. Hui's throat tightened. He tried to shout, but no sound came out. The diary in his hand flipped open again. Fresh red letters appeared. Do not look into their eyes. But it was too late. One of the glowing pairs of eyes moved closer, so near that Hui could see the outline of a burned face. Its mouth split open into a wide grin. Suddenly, all the eyes in the room lit up at once. Dozens, hundreds, surrounding him, closing in. Whispers filled the air, layered and distorted. "You've heard the bell, now see with us, forever?" Hui collapsed to the ground, covering his face with his hands. The clock's bell tolled again, reverberating through the blackness. Kang, Kang? When the sound faded, the eyes disappeared, leaving the room empty. Only a faint echo of laughter remained, drifting in the silence. Chapter 14. The Blood on the Wall. The silence in room 7 grew heavier and heavier. Hui dared not move. His entire body trembled as though the air itself was weighing down on him. Suddenly, a wet dripping sound echoed. Tack, tack, tack? From the wall in front of him, thick blood began to seep out, slowly trickling down in long streams. The smell of iron filled the room, choking him. The blood spread across the wall, twisting and curling into words. "The bell tolls for you." Hui screamed, pounding on the door, but it would not budge. His fists left smears of blood as if the wall itself was alive. The diary in his hand snapped open, its pages fluttering wildly. On a new sheet appeared the line, "The wall remembers every name." At that moment, a bloody handprint slammed against the wall from the inside, pushing outward, then another, and another. Soon, dozens of hands pressed out from within the wall, their fingers stretching, dripping crimson, clawing toward him. The bell tolled again. Kang, Kang? All the hands froze, then slowly withdrew back into the wall. The blood letters dissolved, leaving behind only one new line, scrawled messily, 12 o'clock, forever. Chapter 15. The Cold Breath. Hui leaned against the door, panting heavily. The bloody wall had gone still, but the suffocating darkness in room 7 had not lifted. Suddenly, a wave of icy air brushed against the back of his neck. He froze. Slowly, he turned around. Right behind him was nothing but darkness. Yet, from within it came the sound of breathing, cold, ragged, right next to his ear. "Ha? Ha?" His body trembled violently. He backed away, but the cold breath followed him, pressing closer and closer. The diary in his hand flipped open again. Red letters appeared, dripping like fresh blood. "When you feel the cold breath, do not turn back." But he already had. From the darkness, a burned face suddenly emerged, its mouth wide open, exhaling cold mist directly onto him. Its empty white eyes stared into his. Unblinking, Hui screamed, falling to the ground. The clock chimed again. Kang, Kang? At that sound, the face vanished. The cold breath disappeared, but on the floor where he sat, a line of frost had formed. On it, words etched themselves clearly. "He has breathed upon you." Chapter 16. The Song of the Dead. The frost on the floor had not yet melted when a strange sound drifted through room 7. It was singing, a low, eerie chant, like a lullaby sung through rotting throats. The melody echoed, broken and distorted, sending chills down Hui's spine. He pressed his hands over his ears. But the song still resounded inside his head. The diary on the desk opened violently. Blood-red words formed. "When the bell tolls, the dead will sing." The voices grew louder. Hoy looked around and froze. From the corners of the room, one figure after another emerged. Burned bodies, their mouths twisted open, maggots crawling inside, all of them humming the same cursed song. They swayed slowly, stepping closer to him, the chains on their bodies dragging against the floor. The song rose to a shriek. "Sleep, come sleep, into the grave with us," Hoy screamed, covering his face. The clock struck again. Kang, kang. Instantly, the singing stopped. The burned bodies disappeared as if they had never been there. But on the wall, written in smears of blood, remained the haunting line, "The dead have sung for you." Chapter 17. The chain around the neck. Hoy sat paralyzed on the cold floor of room 7. The echoes of the dead song still lingered in his ears, twisting into his skull. Suddenly, clink, clink, the sound of chains dragged across the floor. From the darkness, the burned figure appeared again, tall and thin, its eyes glowing white. In its hand it held a long chain, glistening with rust and blood. Hoy's body shook uncontrollably. "No, please, don't." The figure slowly approached him. The chain slithered like a living snake, wrapping around Hoy's neck. The diary on the desk snapped open. Blood-red words scratched themselves violently across the page. "The chain has been fastened. The soul cannot escape." The chain tightened. Hoy gasped, struggling for breath, clawing desperately at the cold iron links cutting into his flesh. The burned figure leaned close, its breath icy against his face, and whispered, "At midnight, you will follow." The clock chimed once more. Kang, kang. At that sound, the figure vanished, leaving only the chain still coiled around Hoy's neck. When he touched it again, it was gone, yet the burning pain remained, like an invisible collar carved deep into his skin. On the wall, bloody letters appeared by themselves. "He has been marked." Chapter 18. The Coffin Dream. That night, when the clock struck midnight, Hoy's vision went black. Kang, kang. When he opened his eyes, he found himself lying inside a coffin. The cramped space pressed against his body. The smell of rotting wood and damp earth filled his lungs. Above his head, faint scratching echoed. Something was dragging across the coffin lid. "Cot, ket, cot, ket." Hoy pounded on the coffin, screaming, "Let me out! Somebody help me!" But only silence answered. The diary appeared on his chest, flipping open by itself. Red letters scratched across the page. "The one who hears the bell must sleep in the coffin." Suddenly, nails hammered into the wood from above. Cock, cock, cock. Each strike echoed like thunder, sealing him tighter. The coffin shook violently as if something outside was burying it deeper into the ground. Soil rained down, filling the cracks, pressing heavier and heavier on his chest. The clock's bell tolled again. Kang, kang. Hoy screamed in despair. Then suddenly, everything went silent. The coffin vanished. He opened his eyes and found himself back in his room. But on the floor, dirt and rotting wood fragments were scattered everywhere, as if the coffin had truly been there. On the wall, a bloody line appeared. "He has lain in the coffin." Chapter 19. The Voices Beneath the Floor. That night, as the cursed clock struck 12, Hoy sat rigidly in his room, waiting. Kang, kang. Suddenly, from beneath the floor came faint voices, whispers overlapping, distorted and broken, like countless people speaking all at once. He pressed his ear to the wooden boards. The voices grew clearer. "Let us out! Let us out! We have heard the bell!" Hoy recoiled, face pale, heart pounding. The floorboards began to creak and bulge, as though something beneath was pushing upward. Splinters cracked apart, and from the gaps, pale fingers stretched out, clawing. The diary on the desk flipped open violently. Red words appeared. "The dead are beneath your feet." The boards broke open completely. From the dark pit below, countless burned hands reached up, grasping at his legs, his arms, trying to pull him down. Hoy screamed, thrashing wildly, but their grip was cold and unyielding. The clock chimed again. Kang, kang. At the sound, the hands froze, then slowly withdrew back into the floor. The boards repaired themselves, closing up as though nothing had happened. But on the wood, dark stains of blood seeped upward, forming into words. They're waiting below. Chapter 20. The Shadow in the Corridor. At midnight, the bell tolled again. Kang, kang. This time, Hoi found himself no longer in his room, but standing in a long, narrow corridor. The corridor stretched endlessly, its walls damp and peeling. Dim lights flickered weakly overhead, buzzing faintly. At the far end stood a shadow, tall, thin, motionless. Hoi swallowed hard. Each step he took forward echoed loudly in the silence. The shadow did not move, but he felt its eyes fixed on him. The diary appeared in his hand, its pages flipping open. Red words emerged. Do not walk toward the shadow. But his feet moved on their own, dragging him closer and closer. The shadow began to move as well, step by step, echoing his every motion. The two drew nearer until finally, they stood face to face. The light flickered violently. The shadow raised its head. Its face was Hui's own, burned black, eyes glowing white, mouth splitting into a grotesque grin. The clock chimed again. Kang, kang. At that sound, the lights went out. When they came back on, the corridor was empty. The shadow was gone, but on the wall behind him, smeared in blood, was a single line. He has seen himself. Chapter 21. The Bell Tower. That night, as the cursed clock struck midnight, Hoi was pulled once more into darkness. Kang, kang. When he opened his eyes, he found himself standing at the foot of an ancient bell tower. The structure loomed into the sky, its stones cracked, moss covering every surface. High above, the massive bronze bell swayed on its own, even though no wind blew. The diary in his hand opened. Red words bled onto the page. When the bell rings from the tower, death descends. The tower door creaked open. Against his will, Hoi stepped inside. The staircase spiraled upward, narrow and steep. Each step he climbed echoed with the sound of chains dragging right behind him. Reaching the top, he saw the enormous bell. Its surface was smeared with blood, streaks that had dried long ago. Standing beside it was a dark figure, holding a rope. Slowly, it turned. Its face was hidden in shadow, but its glowing white eyes pierced through the darkness. The figure grasped the rope, pulling hard. Kang! The bell rang out, deep and heavy, reverberating through Hui's chest. Instantly, screams rose from below. He looked down from the tower and saw countless burned bodies crawling out of the ground, swarming the earth like ants. The figure whispered in a voice like rusted iron scraping. The bell has called them. Soon, it will call you too. Chapter 22. The Red Moon. That night, when the cursed clock struck 12, the sky outside Hui's window turned blood red. Kang, kang. A red moon rose slowly, staining the entire town in a crimson glow. The air was suffocating, heavy with the stench of rot. Hoi stood at the window, trembling. The streets below were empty, but in the red light, shadows moved on their own, swaying unnaturally. The diary flipped open on the desk. Fresh blood wrote across the page. When the red moon rises, the dead walk. And they did. From every alley, every corner, burned bodies staggered out. Their eyes glowed white as they turned upward, staring directly at Hui's window. He gasped, stumbling backward. Suddenly, the glass cracked. Dozens of pale, bloodied hands pressed against the outside, clawing as though to break through. The whispers rose again, overlapping, distorted. The bell, we have heard the bell. The clock chimed once more. Kang, kang. The window shattered. Cold wind and the smell of corpses flooded in. When Hoi dared to look again, the streets below were empty, silent. The red moon still hung in the sky, glowing ominously. On the shattered glass shards scattered across the floor, blood formed into words. The red moon has seen him. Chapter 23. The 13th Step. That night, when the cursed clock struck 12, Hoi was once again pulled into a different place. Kang, kang. He found himself at the bottom of a long, spiraling staircase. The air was damp, heavy with the smell of mold and blood. The diary in his hand flipped open. Red words appeared. Do not climb to the 13th step. But his legs moved on their own. Step 1, Step 2, Step 3. Each step creaked loudly, echoing like screams in the silence. Step 10, Step 11. Cold sweat ran down his back. He tried to stop, but an unseen force pushed him forward. Step 12. The bell chimed again. Kang, kang. And then his foot landed on the 13th step. The staircase trembled violently. From the walls, bloody hands burst out, clawing, grabbing, trying to drag him into the stone. Above, a shadow stood at the top of the stairs. Tall and thin, its eyes glowing white, it whispered, its voice like broken glass. "You should not have stepped here." Hoy screamed, clinging to the railing. The bell tolled once more. The staircase collapsed into darkness, pulling everything down with it. When he opened his eyes again, he was back in his room, but on the floor beneath his feet. 13 bloody footprints marked a trail leading to his bed. Chapter 24. The silent phone call. That night, when the clock struck 12, Hui's phone suddenly lit up. Kang, Kang? The screen displayed an incoming call. The number was nothing but zeros. Oh, 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 oh. Hui's hands shook violently. He didn't want to answer. But the phone kept ringing, vibrating as if forcing him to pick up. Finally, with trembling fingers, he pressed the button. At first, there was only silence. Then, a faint breathing sound. Slow, heavy, cold. Ha, ha? Hui's throat went dry. Who is this? He stammered. No reply, only breathing. Then suddenly, whispers erupted from the speaker. Overlapping voices, countless and distorted. "You've heard the bell? You cannot escape?" The diary on the desk flipped open. Red letters scratched themselves across the page. "The call is from the dead." Hoy screamed, hurling the phone against the wall. It shattered, but from the broken pieces. The call still echoed, the whispers growing louder and louder. The clock chimed again. Kang, Kang? Instantly, the sound stopped. The room fell silent. On the shattered phone screen, flickering faintly, were words written in blood. "We have spoken to you." Chapter 25. The visitor at midnight. That night, Hoy sat huddled in his room, his eyes fixed on the cursed clock. He knew the bell would soon toll, and something, or someone, would come. Kang, Kang? At midnight, there was a knock at the door. Cock, cock, cock? Hoy froze, his whole body trembling. The diary flipped open. Red words appeared. "Do not open the door." But the knocking grew louder, heavier, shaking the entire doorframe. Cock, cock, cock. Then a voice spoke from the other side, low and hoarse. "Hoy, open the door, it's me." His eyes widened. That was his friend's voice, the one who had died years ago. "No, no, you're dead?" Hoy stammered. The voice whispered again, colder this time. "I've come back, because you heard the bell?" The doorknob rattled violently, turning on its own. The wood groaned as if it would break at any second. Hoy screamed, pressing his back against the far wall. The bell tolled once more. Kang, Kang? Suddenly, the knocking stopped. Silence fell over the room. On the door, scratched deep into the wood, appeared words written in blood. "He will open it soon." Chapter 26. The 49th night. The darkness inside the coffin was thick and suffocating, nearly choking Hoy. But then, a dim red light seeped through the crack of the lid. When he opened his eyes, he found himself standing in the middle of a vast cemetery, covered by thousands of flickering funeral candles. In the sky, a red moon hung suspended, casting its glow down on countless freshly heaped graves. The air resounded with cries of mourning, mingling with the steady tolling of a bell. Kang, Kang? A figure in a white mourning robe emerged from the mist. It was the burned woman Hoy had faced many times before. She held in her hands a blood-red lantern, her shrill voice rasping. "Tonight is the 49th day. The spirits returned to seek a replacement." Immediately, the grave split open. From within crawled spirits, some burned to ash, some headless, others dripping with blood. All of them collapsed under the red moonlight, crying in unison, "We have not yet been released." A large altar appeared in the center of the cemetery, draped with a white mourning cloth, incense smoke curling thickly. Upon it rested 12 framed portraits, each one the face of someone who had vanished from the town. The last portrait was Hui's. He froze, his legs trembling. The woman with the lantern stepped closer, placing the photo before him, whispering, "On the 49th night, you must go with us. You are no longer among the living." The bell rang furiously. With each toll, Hoy felt the blood in his veins congeal, his flesh turning icy cold. The surrounding spirits burst into mad laughter, clapping their hands to the rhythm of the bell as if performing a ritual. Suddenly, from behind him, he heard a weak voice. "Don't listen to them, run!" He turned and caught a glimpse of a young woman in a white-out dye. Her face was gentle, her eyes brimming with tears. She stood beside a cracked grave, her hand reaching out toward him. The woman in mourning screamed immediately, her voice hoarse. "No one is allowed to save him. He belongs to me." The entire cemetery shook violently. Skeletal hands burst out from the graves, clutching Hui's legs, dragging him down into the earth. In the midst of despair, he only managed to brush the tips of his fingers against the girl's hand in white, before the darkness swallowed him whole. Chapter 27. The Blood on the Wall. Hui jolted awake to find himself sitting in a strange room. Its walls cracked and mottled. Dim light from a yellow bulb flickered above, swaying as if about to go out. The air was stifling, and the stench of blood assaulted his nose. He staggered to his feet, then froze. On the wall opposite him, from tiny cracks, fresh blood began to seep out. It dripped down the tiled floor, spreading into crooked lines that shaped themselves into words. The message became clear: "You cannot hide." Hui stepped back, his heart pounding, but at once, the other walls began to bleed as well. More words slowly emerged, each one a chilling curse. "Blood for blood. Tonight is yours. 12 o'clock, the end." The room shook violently. The bloody streaks widened, forming grotesque human faces, eyes glowing red, mouths torn into wide grins. Every face opened its mouth at once, releasing a strangled sound. "Kang, Kang?" The bell tolled from within the very walls of blood. Hui clutched his head and screamed, but the blood crawled down to the floor, coiling around his legs like chains. In that instant, the light bulb burst and went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Only the dim red glow from the glowing blood remained. A whisper came directly beside his ear, icy and chilling to the bone. "This blood is the mark. You already belong to us." The wall in front of him split apart, opening into a deep, yawning crack. From inside, a charred hand reached out, gripping his shoulder, yanking him violently into the foul, stinking darkness. He screamed, but his cry was drowned out by the long toll of the bell, mingling with the sound of blood dripping onto the tiles. Chapter 28. The Path Down to Hell. Hui was dragged through the wall of blood, falling straight into a pitch-black void. When he opened his eyes, he found himself standing before a massive black iron gate, etched with countless strange symbols. At the top of the gate blazed a red inscription: "The Path Down to Hell." The air reeked of sulfur, and scorching heat surged from the cracks in the ground. Cries of mourning and screams echoed as though from the deepest abyss. The gate slowly creaked open, releasing a thunderous roar like all of hell awakening. Beyond it lay a colossal spiral staircase, descending endlessly into a blazing fiery pit. On every step, charred hands clung tightly, as if waiting for someone to set foot upon them. Terrified, Hui turned back, but behind him was only the sealed wall of blood. There was no escape. "Kang, Kang?" The bell tolled, reverberating throughout the infernal space. Immediately, thousands of spirits appeared on the staircase, all turning their heads toward Hui. Their faces were twisted, burned, their eyes hollow. Step by step, they descended, murmuring, go down, forever?" A wave of searing wind surged, forcing Hui toward the staircase. With each step he took, the ground shook, crimson flames flared, and cries of anguish pierced his soul. At the 12th step, the earth split open. From the fiery fissure rose a gigantic shadow, a towering humanoid creature. Its flesh charred, wearing a blazing red mask carved with the number 12. It bent down to look at Hui, its voice booming like thunder. "The one who hears the bell has finally arrived." The staircase trembled violently. The surrounding spirits all fell to their knees, crying out in unison, "Welcome, new soul, descend into hell." A massive hand from the creature reached out and seized Hui. In his final moment of despair, Hui could only scream before being dragged deep into the fiery abyss, where the bell tolled endlessly without cease. Chapter 29. The Keeper of Time. Hui was hurled into the very depths of the fiery abyss. All around him was pitch black, broken only by faint red glimmers like dying embers. There were no more cries, no more screams, only a deathly silence. Before him floated a massive clock, suspended in the air. It hung on no wall, had no support, drifting instead in the endless void. Its hands were frozen, fixed at the number 12. Beneath the clock sat a towering figure on a black stone throne. His entire body was draped in tattered robes, his face hidden behind a cracked silver mask. In his hand he held a colossal scythe, engraved with the numbers chapter 00 verse 00. Hoy staggered backward, trembling, but the figure's voice rang out, deep, hoarse, and resonant. "I am the keeper of time. All who hear the bell are brought to me." He pointed at the massive clock. "Each toll of the bell summons a soul. When the hand stops on a name, that one belongs to hell forever." On the face of the clock, Hoy saw with horror that there were no longer numbers, but instead thousands of names, all circling endlessly. With every chime, a name flared bright red. And then, among the countless names, his own, Nguyen Minh Hoy, blazed brighter than all the rest. The Keeper of Time rose from the throne, his scythe slicing through the air, splitting it into a fiery rift. He stepped closer, the eyes behind the mask glowing. "The hand has chosen you. You are the one to replace me, to become the next Keeper of Time." Hoy froze in terror. "No, I don't want this. I don't belong to you." But the colossal clock rang out a single, drawn-out chime. Kang! Instantly, burning chains erupted from the ground, coiling around Hoy, dragging him toward the throne. The Keeper of Time raised his scythe high, his voice booming. "The moment of passing has come. Your fate is no longer your own." The flames of hell roared violently, reflecting a twisted smile across the cracked silver mask. The massive clock's hand trembled, preparing to strike its final toll. Chapter 30. The Final Night. The bell tolled long and mournful, as if tearing through all of space. Chains bound Hoy tightly to the black stone throne, the flames of hell wrapping around his body. Before him, the Keeper of Time raised high the scythe engraved with 000. His voice booming, "You will be the one to replace me. When the clock strikes 12 times, your flesh will burn, and your soul will be imprisoned forever." The massive clock began to chime. Kang, kang, with each toll, Hui's skin grew hotter, his blood boiling within him. He screamed in despair. Suddenly, from within the flames appeared the figure of the young woman in the white ao dai, the one he had seen in the cemetery. Her face was sorrowful, her eyes glistening with tears. She reached her hand toward him, whispering, "You are not the replacement? The curse can be broken if you stop the final chime." The Keeper of Time roared, his voice like thunder. "No one can interfere. This is his fate." The clock's hand shifted. The 11th chime rang, drilling into Hui's skull. All of hell trembled, spirits howled, demanding his soul. The young woman rushed forward, grasping Hui's hand. A blinding white light burst forth, shattering the chains of fire. In that instant, Hoy gathered all his strength and hurled himself toward the colossal clock. Kenggggggg. The 12th chime was about to strike, but Hoy smashed his hand against the face of the clock. The entire void exploded, crimson light shattering into 1,000 fragments. Screams erupted from every bound soul. The Keeper of Time shrieked as his body cracked and crumbled into ash. All the spirits dissolved into the whirlwind of light. When Hoy opened his eyes, he was lying on the bed in his rented room. The wall clock read 11:59. No bell, no spirits, no blood, only an unsettling silence. He trembled as he looked around. It was as though nothing had ever happened. But, on the desk lay the blood-stained diary. Open to a new page. Fresh red letters appeared. The curse has not ended. Whenever the clock strikes 12, the next one will be called. Suddenly, Hui's phone vibrated. The screen lit up, showing an incoming call from 0000000. In terror, he heard a familiar voice from the speaker. "You have changed fate, but tomorrow night, the bell will toll again. And this time, it will not be only you." Chilling laughter echoed. The wall clock shook slightly, its second hand ticking forward. Tick-tock, tick-tock. The story closes, yet the midnight bell still awaits.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.